Composing Gloves here, and today we're going to be talking about the 2-5-1 progression. Now, I'm going to be using the composition I made in FL and the composition I made in written music. I want to show you in written music just because it's written music so you can see it. However, I'm just demonstrating the properties of the 2-5-1 chord. I'm not giving like a voicing lesson or anything that's really totally specific towards written music. So we're just going to look at some properties of the 2-5-1, and I feel like a lot of those properties are more easily demonstrated by me, is more easily demonstratable for me to you via that method of explanation. But let's take a look at this. So what is the 2-5-1? Well, the 2-5-1 is a jazz chord progression. Well, not necessarily jazz, but it is arguably the second most popular chord progression. Like as soon as you get into any sort of improvisational jazz, people will be like 2-5-1, 2-5-1, 2-5-1. Now keep in mind, the 2 refers to the second tone in the scale, 5 the 5th, and the 1 the 1st. So this works for major and minor scales, but we are going to be looking at it pretty much exclusively as a major thing for now. It's really easy. You just switch it to the minor keys and you'll get it. So I'm moving in the key of C major. This is what a 2-5-1 sounds like. Now this is a super basic, like literally as basic as you could probably get, unless I were to like change these to like half notes so they went along. Sounds like this. That's one of this melody, the way it plays it, that's one of the reasons why I'm going to use FL to show you, because it's easier to control how the melody is played. Here, it's just like, this is for writing music for other people to interpret, so it doesn't sound near as clean. If I were to sequence it into Sibelius, then it would play back the way I played it. So that's kind of cool, I guess. But I just need to become more familiar. However, I am heavily thinking about switching to Finale just because there have been a number of things I've run into that just piss me off. So yeah. Anyways, that's like another topic. So what is the 2-5-1 now? You'll notice here that the 2-5-1 lends itself to a key change. So it's super great for looping. As you see, it loops great. And it's super great for going to the next chord to shift keys. So we're going to talk about this. Now, I want to really quick address. Well, let's really quick make the chord progression. So in the key of C major, what's the second chord? That's right. It's a 2 chord. It's D. And so you make a D minor chord because diatonically it'll be D minor. Then what is the 5 chord? You got it right. The 5 chord is a G. So it would be a G major chord because 2, 5, and then 1 would be C. So we have D, G, C. You can invert. You can do all sorts of jumbo jazz to this. So feel free to do that. Now you'll notice in the bass that I'm doing this sort of arpeggiation, broken chord type deal. What is the deal with this? Well, it is, you might be saying, does this change the inversion every time? The answer is no. The lowest note that was sounded is the D in this case. All other notes serve to emphasize the D. So the D, so this would be a root position chord. Just so you're clear, I just want to make that point about arpeggiations. Now, there's one other thing I want to point out while we're still in written music land, and it was, I can't remember it right now. Let's go over to FL. So this is the composition I have in FL. So that's cool and all, but here's a better improvisational section. Oh, let me keep going more. So there's the key change there as well. So what exactly is going on? Let's go back to written music real fast. So okay, we have our D, our 2-5-1, and it's amazing how the right sounds can make it so much easier to be inspired. So we got our 2-5-1. Now consider this. This 2-5-1 sounds an awful lot like the chord progression. It sounds like a circular chord progression. That's the correct way to use the 2, at least the stereotypical way that we use the 2 chord, is we pull to the 5 because it shares a fifth. In this case, it would be an ascending fourth. So we go up generally 2, 5, 1, you know, that kind of thing. So we go up to the fourth, down a fifth. That sounds like a circular chord progression to me. Go watch the video if you don't remember that. And what does this mean for us? Well, this lends itself to something really cool that we can, I was called a suspension. So there's something I do right here. So here we'll see that we have the notes in the tonic. So we have C. So we have E, G, B, and C. Now I have suspended the octave. I've suspended the C to be a B, the 7. So instead of it resolving right away, it gets suspended and then it resolves later. It sounds like this. That's super cool. Now you can take that same idea and do it backwards, and you could shift keys very easily. What are you talking about, Mr. Gloves? Well, you could go 2-5-1. And then we know that if we make this 1 a minor chord, because the 2 and a diatonic, we're moving in the major key. So a 2 is always going to be a minor chord. So we know that if we take our 1 chord and make it a minor chord, it therefore must be a 2 chord in some other key. And if we know that key, then we can move into that one. And so that's exactly what I did. So here we go. That's why the 2-5-1 is so cool. So we go 2-5-1, and then we play the 1 again. You see same note, except for now it's minor. And now there's a couple things to realize. Now think about this. So a major scale is made by going tonic, major second, or tonic whole step. So that means if we do that backwards, we will find out the key we're in, because originally it was the 1 chord. Now it's the 2 chord. 2 by definition is up a whole step. So we go down a whole step, and think about it. We're in C, so down a whole step would be B flat. So our new tonic position is B flat. So we've just established when we pull this kind of a move, we're now moving in B flat. We just switched to a key signature with 2 flats. It sounds really great. And so what does this mean for us? Well, because that got shifted down 1, you can think about that for all the intervals. So whatever the 5 was, which you just played, if you were playing, or you just wrote if you were writing. So in C major, the 5 was G. Now think about this. So that was the 5. If the 1 became the 2, then the 5 became the 4. So it's going to be F major. Yes. So okay, that might have been a little bit confusing. You could think of the 5, so we know that we're in B flat. We've established that. Just think of the 5, that would be F. Now, to me, just being a piano player and such, I happen to practice quite a bit. And I noticed that you could think of it as the 4 in the previous key when you're doing the transition. So that's just another way of thinking about it in case you haven't thought about it like that before. If this is your first time, you might just be thinking, oh my gosh, this is crazy. But one day it will make sense to you if you stick with it. So anyways, the 5 chord, so and B flat, C minor, and then F is the 5. So we have C minor, F major, and then B flat. It sounds great. You can also improvise on top of it, which is why I wanted to show you this. You can improvise the snot out of it. We're going to talk about what I did here to sort of accomplish this type of a feeling. Now, one other thing I really quick want to talk about is embellishments. Not embellishments, but alterations, extensions, things of that nature. So here, I am playing a D minor chord. I put the what was originally supposed to be the thing that determines the inversion in the highest voice though. Why would you do that? Well, it's because I have this other voice going on that is playing notes, and it's also an arpeggiation, but it outlines the chords that I want. Now, there's a couple different types of bass lines. There's the bass line that establishes the inversion. There's the rhythmical bass line. Typically, you have some version of multiple some sort of in between of these. And then the third one is the melodic bass line. Because this is playing a melodic role as well, the inversion is a little weird here because I have it outlining the chord here and it's emphasized on the downbeat. But this beat over here, this is on a weak beat, but it is the lowest note. So it doesn't feel like the inversion has switched though. If you notice, you still feel like the G it still feel like it's in root position for the most part. So that's one of those things. I do it again here on the C, but on the D, I don't have that issue. It's just because of the role I decided to have this play. So when we're doing the 2-5-1 chord, the 2-5-1, we have a couple different options here. You can add a 7th or a 9th, or you could choose to think of it as you're in the C major key and you can hint around that you're still in C major. What are you talking about? So in the D, in our original deal here, we have a D minor chord. It's kind of boring. So what could we do to make it more interesting? Well, we could add a 7, which is the C. Guess what else is, and we can also add a 9th, which is an E. Now we could choose to think of this as an extension. If we add a G, that'll be another great thing to add. It fits quite nicely into the compound interval of our chord. But if you think about this, we're sort of emphasizing the C major chord a little bit too. Like we're saying, hey, we're in C major. So it's kind of an interesting deal. You could choose to think of it like that. Here I added, what am I in G? So the A would be, this is an add 2 chord, but I thought about it when I was doing it as a 9 chord, and then I brought it down to bring in a close voicing. So that's why the A is down here. So this is an add 2 chord. And then over here, I just did a suspension, which we already talked about. So that's that. That's all there really is to the 2 chord. I mean, to the 5-2, the 2-5-1. And it's super, super useful. And now the improvisational side, let's talk about this. So I chose a scale, and I chose mostly chord tones, but occasionally you see things like this, you see things like this, you see things like this and like this. What is the deal here? So I'm going to explain 2 of the things that are sort of something that I think you could handle. So if you remember back from the phrasing and motifs video, there are some cool tricks we have when it comes to manipulating textures and timbres and taking something that was originally maybe boring, like a stagnant thing, and we can make it more interesting. I started doing it here a little bit, but the style doesn't come through as good as it does in FL. So I decided just to do this in FL. So what's going on? So here we have what's called a neighboring tone. There's another one over here. What is a neighboring tone? A neighboring tone serves to emphasize the note that neighbors it. So here we have G, a neighboring tone. This could be diatonic or chromatic. So a neighboring tone is A, and it goes back to G. So it's emphasizing the G. The A lives to make the G sound nicer. To say, hey, here's a G. A, here's a G. Get it? A, here's a G. No, maybe not. Maybe it went over you. Okay, so that's a neighboring tone. Really, really cool. So this is what it sounds like in context. So you see da na na. You don't spend time thinking of the da na. You don't spend time thinking about that. You spend time going da na na. You think about that tone. Then over here, these are passing tones. So what am I doing here? So these would be considered passing tones. Passing tones in a nutshell are you have point 1 and you have note 1 and note 2, and they're a distance apart, and you put tones in the middle to get to that tone. That's passing tone. So and like in a really basic version of it. Over here I have a trill too. So when you just, you go, oh my, what am I controlling with this? Oh, my keyboard's off. That's a trill. You just go to the nearest note. So it's not like a big deal. Okie dokie. Now, here I could choose to add 9ths and 7ths and stuff, but again, the way I interface with this software has just kind of pushed me to the point where I'm not interested really in working in this. I'm really considering moving to Finale, where I can actually do things that are like more intuitive. I don't even know. Okay, we're not gonna talk about space, but anyways, that's the 2-5-1 chord. If you have any questions about this progression, let me know. It's gonna form the basis for some later tricks we're gonna use to make even more complicated, more interesting chord progressions. Subscribe and have a blessed day. Chromatic scale is easy peasy, lemon squeezy, jazzo mazzo. So what's the deal with chromatic scale? What is that? And it's a big word, chromatic, chromomatilicio, chameleon. So what is the chromatic scale? Chromatic scale is every single note. You see that? That's chromatic scale.